Hey everybody, Ijaz back with another video. So Coinbase are scheduled to share their Q2 earnings after close today on Tuesday. And I just wanted to take a little dive into what we are expecting. Take a look. So Q2 consensus for Coinbase amongst the analysts that are analyzing the stocks are a revenue of 1.77 billion and they're expecting an EPS of 2.24. Now, before we go into that, let's have a recap of what we saw in Q1. So we have revenue of 1.8 billion versus an expected 1.8 billion. We had EPS of 3.05 versus an estimate of 3.09. So a slight miss, you could say technically, but it was on track. And net income was 771 million versus 32 year on year. That is ridiculous. And the quarter before, which was Q4 2020, was 177 million. So it's 5x that in a quarter on net income, which is phenomenal. Now, they said they had 56 million verified users and 6.1 million monthly transacting users versus 2.8 in the quarter before. So in one quarter, they doubled their monthly transacting users, which are users that are actually transacting. Okay, they're spending money on the platform. They're not just verified. The 56 million are verified and monthly 6.1 transacted on the platform. So if I just share this with you, let's share this with you. Move me up there. So you can see this is what they shared in their S1 when they filed. This brings them up to Q4. Now when they listed, so if you imagine, this is their growth, okay, for all of 2018, 2019, Q4 2020, and then Q1 was a 6.1 million up here. Okay, so it's double this bar really. So it's all the way up as high as we can go. Okay, now we're expecting higher MTUs for Q2. So we're expecting higher MTUs for Q2, and for the management have said for the full year, we're expecting MTUs to come in anywhere between the 5.5 to 9 million range. Now that is a big range, but Coinbase have reiterated that they're in a highly volatile market, so it's difficult for them to share such precise estimations. Now, coming back to Q1, at the time of Q1, Bitcoin was accounting for 39% of revenues through trading fees, as well as Ethereum was 21%. So you can see they weren't very well diversified. Between those two there, 60% of the revenue coming from those two coins. And it'd be interesting to see how that comes in versus Q2. Now, we also remember that Coinbase listed at a price of 381. They're currently sitting at, let me check, 268. Okay, so over 120 points off the listing price, and they listed at the peak. They listed when Bitcoin was up in the 60,000s, and since then in Q2 was when we had that really down period, Bitcoin going down to 29s, 28s, and that's what this reading is going to be for. So this reading will not take into account the recovery we've seen in July, because remember it's up to June figures, so that'll be really interesting. Now if I just flick back over here, now, just flick back through, we can see that the market cap is 70 billion, enterprise value of 57. Let's just flick through to the financials. Now, I'm going to click on quarterly. So you can see this is the quarter where they produced the Q1 figure. So 1.8 billion there, and the net income was the 771, which will be here. That's your 771 of your net income that they shared. Okay, so we'll be expecting figures in or around that. Now, it's important to mention that in here you have your operating expenses, which is your selling, general and admin, and research and development. Now, what we had, so you'll see the figures there, Q1. We really want to keep an eye on this because we want to see how well are they managing to improve their margins with time. So they're bringing in more through the top of the funnel. How much are they able to maintain to the bottom? So far, their net income has looked fantastic, although management has said that they do expect in Q2 36 million in one-time expense, 35 million, in one-time expenses due to the direct listing. And they're also saying for the rest of the year, 2021, we're going to be investing more in our technology and expenses and our SG&A, so our administrative expenses. So they expect that to sit at 1.3 to 1.6 billion. Okay, so you can see that here, selling and general administration in just one quarter was 240. So you can multiply that out 480, 960, but they're expecting 1.3 to 1.6. So quarter and quarter, they're expecting that to ramp up. And we just want to make sure that revenue is ramping up with that. But like we said, it's been a difficult time for crypto. So have they been impacted due to the fees? That's the key. Now, since then, we've also had news that Brett Redfin, the former SEC chair who was the head of capital markets, has resigned. He said he resigned because there's been a strategy shift at the company. Will we hear more about that? What's going on? It'd be interesting to know. And also the regulatory risks. We heard from the SEC chair, Gary Gensler. I posted a video making a deep dive into his remarks. So feel free to go and check that to understand kind of some of the regulatory concerns. We've also had the infrastructure bill, which still hasn't been voted on. I believe that's happening tonight, which would define brokerages and who's going to be taxed and who has to provide the KYC information. So where does Coin stay with that? Now, finally, we expect, like I mentioned, Coin expect higher MTUs. They expect it to tick up from the graph we just showed, and they expect volume to be roughly in line as Q1. Now, it'll be interesting to see, we've saw the London hard fork with Ethereum. That's not going to come into these figures for June, but we did see after Coinbase's listing a lot of euphoria around the NFT space. DeFi was picking up, the likes of Axie Infinity, Uniswap, the CryptoPunks. A lot of these things were picking up. So it'll be interesting to see if they benefited from any of those transactions. I regularly share on this channel how much people are using the different platforms on the Ethereum network. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, a lot more growth in the Ethereum segment of their trading fees. The other thing to note, remember when we looked at the S1, Coinbase needs to start showing us a few improvements. So not a few improvements, but a few seeds of opportunity that they're starting to diversify. We remember that, they can't just be fee-based, because if the market shifts and a Robinhood type entrant comes into the market with zero trading fees and they're doing selling order flow instead, then Coinbase is going to have an issue, because this is primarily driven on fees. So they need to show that they can start incrementally improving their other services, and that's what's going to be important here. We need to not necessarily look at their trading fee growth, but we need to see that incrementally all the other services that once a user's on Coinbase, those things are going up. Okay, so use of their digital wallets, use of all the other products and services they're offering. We need to see that ecosystem grow. Now, just for what I mentioned, some of the other companies who have an interest in Bitcoin, how did they fare when they announced their Q2 results? So we saw Tesla had to give a 23 million impairment of BTC due to the fall in the price. So that was that. And Square, their BTC revenue fell from 3.5 to 2.7. So if those two things are any indication to go by, it's going to have been a tricky quarter for Coinbase, but that's where we're heading to. So everybody, after close, Coinbase revenue, we're expecting a 1.77, adjusted EPS of 2.24. We want to see that the user growth is remaining steady. We want to see a tick up in monthly transacting users. We're not expecting a massive tick up. Even if we just see a steady tick up, that will be good enough given the slight a bearish quarter we had. It was a bearish quarter we had in the crypto space. And we just want to make sure that we're diversifying out of the heavy reliance on the Bitcoin and Ethereum trading fees. Okay, so there you have it. That was the summary of what we're expecting from this evening's Q2 figures earnings from Coin. If you're invested, make sure you're tuned in and you're listening to the figures, and we'll see you in the next one.